Here's my audience. In a 2013 study, it was presumed that around 165 million children around the world are suffering from malnourishment and in need of food daily. My purpose for this speech is simple, and that is to persuade all of you to volunteer for Feed My Starving Children, an organization that provides food for malnourished children around the world. I am an extremely reliable source, as I have been a member of Feed My Starving Children since 2011. In this speech, I will start by talking about what we need at Feed My Starving Children, then what will result if we do and if we do not get the volunteers that we need, and what will happen when we officially get what we want. I'll start out by describing to you what a malnourished child is. Here is an example of a malnourished African child. As you can see, his rib cage is showing very clearly. He has very minimal fat in his body, and that prevents him from growing, as his stomach is just burning required nutrients because he doesn't have extra fats to be burned by his stomach. We'll start out here with the needs that Feed My Starving Children requires. The first is, of course, the non-perishable foods that we need to send overseas. And foods, they don't fall from the sky. They need to get purchased. And as a nonprofit organization, they get purchased through donations and fundraising. The foods that we need they're not very cheap, because we can't send things like meat that are high protein that the kids want, because they will spoil in the long journey from the US to Africa. So we have to do things like rice and legumes. At livestrong.com, they describe the high protein foods that malnourished children need, because if they don't get the protein, the bodies can't develop at the rate that they need to. The next need that we have is that of shipping. Shipping is not cheap when you're moving from America to Africa. And we think when we donate a certain amount of money, that money is going completely toward the food that the children are getting. But an aid foundation called Oxfam International said that every $1 donated costs $2 in shipping to get from America to Africa. And on top of that, where that money comes from is the trip. And if you think about getting from America to Africa, you're not just driving over there. You can either take a ship or a plane. Plane would be the fastest, but according to www.distancefrom2.net, it says at least 12 to 15 hours per plane ride. And not only is that expensive, you gotta get from the truck from the packaging facility to the airport, and then a truck from the airport in Africa to the villages that are malnourished. Our final need is that of packagers. As a nonprofit organization, it is impossible for us to pay a salary to people to do all the packaging. We have to get volunteers to do it for us. And without volunteers, there is no Feed My Starving Children. According to the Corporation of National and Community Service, 30.3% of Americans as of 2018 volunteered. If we can get that number up to 40 or maybe even 50%, not only will Feed My Starving Children flourish, but all nonprofit organizations will flourish throughout the world. If we successfully treat these malnourished communities, it will lead to an economic and education growth around the world. As these children will no longer have to worry about where their next meal comes from, they can start to worry about other things like education and providing for their community, and to get to their communities to the point where they can provide their own food for them, and we don't need to deliver it to them. And the plan is simple. It starts out with step 1, where we obtain funds through donations and fundraising. Step 2, we purchase the foods and get all the shipping supplies. Step 3, we get our volunteers and get them packing food right away. Step 4, we ship the food to the malnourished areas And then step 5 is easy. We just get to sit back and watch the communities grow. And if you end up volunteering, you get more than just that feeling of, yeah, I volunteered. You get to see firsthand impact on what these families, how you impacted their lives. You see them go from not having anything to eat for 2 days straight to being active and energized throughout the day. If you don't end up volunteering, you'll see a never-ending cycle of kids being born without food, going through malnourishment, starvation, and suffering until they eventually pass away at a young age. So now today, I've talked to you about issues with malnourishment, what we can do to help that, what will happen if we do not help that, and our overall goals here at Feed My Starving Children. I hope that was enough to persuade you to volunteer at your local chapter. And now what I want you to do is go out to www.feedmystarvingchildren.com and reserve your packaging time today. Thank you.